What's up, tea drinkers? Who's ready to spill? Welcome to The Tea with KG, hosted by your girl, Kaylee Grace. Here you'll find your weekly boost of real talk mixed with laughter, healing, and all of those vulnerable, messy moments in between. The Tea with KG is a safe space for you to show up exactly as you are. We are here to share real-life stories from around the globe and be a community of love, joy, and celebrating life. This is a real deal show, so there will be coarse language and sensitive topics discussed. The most beautiful stories oftentimes emerge from the darkest of places, and we're here to explore it all. There's room for everyone at this tea time, so grab your drink of choice, spark it up, or just relax and soak it up. Cheers, and let's spill. What's up, tea drinkers? We are back with another episode of The Tea with KG. I'm your host, Kaylee Grace. We are here to spread the sparkle. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I am emanating my soul. I'm wearing a sparkly pink bodysuit, so we're all about the sparkles today. I have another amazing guest joining me. I am so excited to have the lovely Cheyenne Isaac-Gloade joining us. What's up, girl?
Hi, Kaylee. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. So Chey is a fashion designer. So freaking cool. All the listeners know I love me some fashion, love me some creativity. So I'm so excited to talk more about what you do, your story, how we got to where we are now. Can't wait to hear it all. I will let you explain it in your own words, though, with the who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Cheyenne Isaac-Gloade, as you mentioned. I'm Mi'gmaq from Listigage, Quebec. I'm 32 years old. And I have been on a fashion design artistic journey for a very long time. I'm very influenced by my Mi'gmaq culture. I'm also very influenced by, modern day fashion as well as like high-end fashion. I've always had an eye for that. And I'm just doing things that align with my dreams. And I think that bringing in like Indigenous creators and doing things for the Indigenous kind of space is so important to me. So there's not a ton of that in the fashion industry, and I'm just really excited to try to break through. I know that it's been big for the last few years. We see a lot more Indigenous designers and artists and very talented people. So it's really about, finding space there and bringing, what I have to offer to the table, what the East Coast kind of traditional vibe has to offer to the fashion world. But I really love to do the mix up where I combine the two, and then, it's stuff for everybody, not just, Indigenous people. So that's a little bit about, I guess, me and where I'm going.
Yes. I love all that. I was just like, yes, yes, yes. I have to stop myself with guests because I get so excited. I just want to be like, yes. But I'm like, no, let them speak. Then you can say how excited you are. I friggin' love that. And you can see it like with your design. Like, I love that you bring your culture into it. And like you said, it's so important for us to bring that to the mainstream. And I agree, like what you were saying, the past few years, so many Indigenous creators are on and popping, and I am so here for it. I'm like, yeah, it's just so beautiful. And like I always think of the dancing like that. It's just so mesmerizing and gorgeous to me. And just you just feel it. You feel that energy, you feel those vibes, and I love that you're bringing that expression through your fashion. And not only that, like you're pulling from whatever inspires you, the modern stuff, your cultural stuff, what you see, high fashion. I think that's so awesome that you don't limit yourself. You were like, let's just see what inspires me and let's go. So props to you for that, because I'm here for it.
Thank you.
Of course. So Chey Designs is what your company is called, right?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for quite some time, probably since I was about I want to say like 10 years old. I was exposed to
Nice.
things in school, and we have a course called culture class in
Mhm.
Listigate in our community school. So at an early age, I was just really taken to that, but I didn't know that this would be something that I would make kind of base my career around. So I enjoyed working with my hands, things like that. I was exposed to culture from my father. I did a lot of dancing, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a big part of my
I always
life.
think that I've seen videos of you dancing. It's gorgeous. I'm just like, yes.
So that's been important to me, and like I love the fashion within that realm of dancing. Like,
Yes, it's stunning. Even like I don't want to say men and women, but like sometimes women we get more of the fun, flashy stuff, but the men's theirs is just as awesome. Like it's so powerful and I can feel it. Like I can when I see the dancing and see the outfits, it all just it speaks to me, and I think it's amazing.
it's a very it's a very powerful thing to be able to practice, but to keep that our culture kept alive. But it's very sharing, it's very inviting. And like you said, the flashiness. So it was really cool because, as far as I can remember, when I was younger, I was able to be exposed to fashion in that kind of setting. So, like, you can decide what color dresses you want, what speaks to you, how you
Yeah.
know,
What you
interpret.
feel. I love that a lot because I feel like even as a kid, I always was very, I feel very similar to you, always very creative, always loved fashion, but I always was excited if I got to choose my colors or if I got to choose or put my input like in anything, but especially with that because it's such a meaningful piece that you wear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's so funny because even like your sparkly top, there's a lot of pictures out there like that
Yes.
you're just full
Love it.
glam. It's so cool. So that was something that I was exposed to, like my expression at an early age of like, using color concepts, things like that. And then from there, I did a lot of beadwork is kind of my niche. But one of the things that was challenging for me was the sewing. I didn't quite know how to sew. I was exposed to that maybe in my early teens or late teens.
Mhm.
And for me, it was challenging. And I knew at a young age, clothing and designing was something like I would draw on sketchbooks. So on the
I
flip
was gonna
side,
ask you that too. I was gonna say, were you a drawer?
I would do like a lot of clothing and figures wearing clothing. And my mom kind of caught like an eye of that, and she kind of helped me understand what a fashion designer was. So aside from the cultural part of me, I was always doing that kind of stuff, like just doodling
Yes.
around and dressing up like Barbies and things like
Oh
that were
my
so
God.
exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I swear, like, that was the most fun part. I was like, okay, what outfit are we gonna wear today,
Yeah.
Barbies? Like, what do we got? And even myself, like, it's so, I love that you're saying this because as a child, like, some of the stuff I would be like, my mom would try and dress me a certain way, and I'd be like, no, I need to
No.
express myself. Like, I'm gonna wear this. And some of the outfits, I'm like, you did not care. You wore what you wanted, you put what colors you wanted together. But I feel like that was important for me because I had to express myself somehow and bring that creativity out. So I feel like it's so important for us as like look back if people aren't sure where they want to go and you are creative, look back to it as a kid. Like what did you like as a kid? What were you drawn to? Like Shy, it's just like you've brought this beautiful vision to life from your entire growing up. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, so just things like that. I remember talking about growing up. It was picture day and my I was staying at my grandmother's that evening, and the next day I cried to wear a costume jewelry set, but it wasn't just a costume jewelry set. It was like the plastic ones you get like
Yes. I
and
totally know what you mean.
and I wanted to wear high heels, and she was just like, absolutely not. And I was crying. So finally they had to let me go. And I was so happy in my pictures with my like
You had your
plastic.
bling. Oh my God, yes. There was this costume, well, all the costume jewelry, but there was this ring that I always used to wear. My parents were like, there she goes. She's got her bling on. I was like, yes, I do.
So I found at an early age that was just something, I was really drawn to. And luckily for, being Mi'gmaq and Indigenous culturally too, I think, in my opinion, and this is just a little bit of a biased opinion, it's like Indigenous people were so fashionable, even, hundreds of years
Yeah,
ago.
they
Like
are.
they
Mm-hmm.
came with their hair done, they had lots of jewelry. And so,
Yes. And like
yeah.
you said, like the colors and I love to very like natural things. So I love as well when you can use the beauty of Mother Earth and nature to express. And I just think I love so much. Like I'm so grateful to my friend Max. She's always been so inclusive with me with indigenous practices because it just really resonates with me. Like it's just connecting to creator and mother earth and embodying that, it's just so beautiful. So I love too, you said that earlier, how it is very like inclusive and you want to share that, and I just think that's beautiful. Just for humans, even our stories, like I think that's how we connect, like that's how we open up and gain perspective for people and learn to just live in love. And I think that's so awesome that you mentioned that and you embody that as well.
Yeah, you know, I've struggled, of course, with things as being Indigenous. It is very hard, in terms of like, especially when you're visibly. I've, you know, grew up, got a lot of the neighboring towns, like a lot of racism and getting followed, and that created some bitterness in me
Of
against, you
course.
know, non-Indigenous people because it was very
Hmm.
hard. But as
Hmm.
I grew, I had a total different mindset, and I guess I see people's spirits. Like I'm also a very spiritual
Me
person.
too. I think that's why I feel what you're saying there. Like it's you just feel people and you feel their intentions, but given your trauma, like it would make sense that you would have those feelings, of course.
Yeah, it was a struggle, you know. I had to work on it. I had to meet different people and realize that, you know, not everybody can be cut with the same, you know, cut by the same cloth or whatever the
Yeah.
expression is. But
Yeah.
as I grew and I learned and I met some really amazing people, I no longer have the like, of course trauma lives, we carry like racial trauma with us. It's really
Mm,
big.
it's in the body and it's
Yeah.
generational. It's years and years and years, of
Yeah.
course.
And it's like you carry ripple effects of what happened. But for me, the growth I've experienced with that has been you know, huge. And I think that the more and more I surround myself with people who have good intentions, and I don't look at, you know, um kind of that generational tie or kind of that burden. It's been really wonderful, and I think that, you know, I'm so grateful I learned that and I got out of my way with that because, you know, nobody wants to be bitter and nobody wants to, you know, constantly play, I guess, a victim scenario, and
Hmm.
it's not, I would not, and I rephrase that, like, I would never say my people are in a victim mind frame or anything like that. But for a while, just my personal experience, it was just very,
Yeah.
you have, when you carry a lot of anger, right, it's really hard. So I had to learn and go through a lot of things. I have had my own spiritual journey with that, and I've learned to, you know, figure out that there's so much beauty in the world, even when things are really hard, even when you had a really difficult upbringing or history, or kind of like racial trauma in a whole, you can find beauty in so many things, and it doesn't matter, you know, where you come from, who you are. There's beauty in everybody, just like there isn't, you know, some
You're
people.
gonna make me cry. You're getting me with all the feels right there. Oh my God, that was so poetic. That was so beautiful. I'm serious. I'm like, whoa, got the tears flowing already, people.
Well,
Oh,
it's been a journey, you know, like I think everybody has experiences that are really tough. And so that's been one of mine.
100%. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And thank you for being so open. I feel like I said, that's how we gain perspective and how we just love each other. Like I said, like that's how compassion is gained. For me anyway, I approach each person so openly because I'm like, what's your story? And each person's so different. I'm like, let's peel back those layers. Like what's going on in there? Like I love, and it helps you understand people. And I think when you understand people, then you understand, how we act or how we move through life and things like that. And I just think it's just important in general for all of us. So it's so gorgeous for me when I hear people when they work through all those little sticky bits in us, because we all have those and they all look different. They're all different scales, different complexities, but at the end of the day it's trauma, right? And it's all
Yeah.
about how we work. And I get, not in the same way, but in my own journey, some of those feelings that are so difficult to work through, and when things rock you, it's can be very foreign as well. Like I had a really hard time coming to terms with different emotions I was feeling at certain points in life, because it was like, what is this? Like, this is not something I was used to. And like, just the thoughts and feelings. And that can be in it itself such a challenge. But then once you kind of figure out, okay, this is maybe what I'm dealing with or what's going on, and you can sift through that a bit, it is, like you said, so beautiful. And doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean every day is perfect, but like I'm getting me the feels again, but it is beautiful when you get there. And can see things in a different light and a different perspective.
It's so true. And some of the things too, like Indigenous people experience as a whole, is just like the effects of residential school, it's really hard things that are like, you're, if not reminded by, people deflect it, or it's let's get over these things. And so, like you said, I still struggle when I see things today, and you see people that don't have any compassion, or they're ignorant, and not in the sense of being negative, in the sense of they just don't know the difference. So one of my, I like to call like my power tool, is to educate people. I think that that's so important, and what I do through some of my art is to bring that education.
Yes, I wanted to ask you quickly too, because I just thought of it and I can't find my pen. So I was like, I can't write it down to remember. But okay, I watched a movie recently and I swear I thought you were in it, but I was like, maybe that's not her because it was just a quick little clip. It was called, I believe it was called For Love. It's like a movie on Netflix. You
I'm
probably, okay, I knew it. I was looking and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Shy. And I kept staring and I rewinded it. I was like, I know that's her. But I was like, I have to ask you because it was stunning. Like it stood out to me. Again, your outfit you have on, the location you're in, it was such a powerful shot. So I was like, I have to ask. Also, listeners, if you do want to watch a really great educational, well done documentary
yeah,
style, or it's awesome. And it's For Love, correct? Is that the
yeah.
name?
So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So
Yes, yes.
I actually am in it, in a clip from a clip. So
What?
yeah, so where the original shot is I'm in the music video for Classified called Powerless. So they took
Okay.
that, yeah. But it was just really cool to still be a part of it. But it's about, I think that whole docuseries is about, or documentary is about child welfare, and the things that went
Hmm.
on.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. It goes all over Canada. I liked that a lot because each area it's different. Like each
Yeah.
place, like up north has different issues. Of course, some are the same, but differing depending on like your climate and things as well. It was really well done, and just the way it was presented, and I really enjoyed watching it. So if anybody is looking for ways they can further educate themselves, definitely check that out on Netflix. We're not sponsored by Netflix or anything, but
No, it was really well done. But I will chat a little bit about too, like my experience with that whole, like getting to be able to be on a music video. Like it was just
yes. Oh,
crazy
stunning.
experience. Yeah. So back to where I just kind of pursued that. I pursued wanting to go to design school. I got accepted to a few. I got accepted to a school in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's an Indigenous based
Ooh,
school.
that is
I
so
forget
cool. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
forget. I didn't go though. That's the kind of downfall, but I forget what they call it now. It was like the American Indian Arts Institution at the time. Anyways, I wasn't able to go. So due to like some unforeseen circumstances with funding, and I didn't know how to apply in the States, and it was just a really big
Hmm.
kind of
Was
challenge.
this right after high school?
Yeah.
Okay, I was so quickly like I know we talked kind of like you drew and stuff. Did you ever create like a any clothing or accessories before you graduated high school?
Actually, I did, and that would have been my
Okay, cool.
regalia. Like I've had some.
Beautiful. Okay, I was just curious. Yeah, because I was like, I'm sure there was like schooling and stuff, but just before that, I was like, I'm sure she's made a few things. Probably jewelry too, because I know you said
Yeah.
bead like your jam.
Yeah. About when I was 15, I kind of started creating beadwork. And that's when social media started to kind of ramp up a little bit, and Facebook was,
Yeah.
and I posted these things up, and people in my community went wild. They were like, how much? And I was
Give me
like,
that.
like $10. So I started very humbly, because always had that concept of like, it's not the greatest yet. I'm getting there. I'm not going to,
I feel you
charge,
there. Hmm.
yeah, I'm, $1 million for it. And I always, when I teach, I encourage that to young people, like get your style right, get your quality right, and then start to move up from there. So I did
Yes.
that, and then people started ordering things off me, and I was just like, this is wild. I'm, 16 years old, and I was making a couple $100s off of like doing some pretty pretty good beadwork. So that was really
Yeah, and you love to do it too, so it was like, why not, fuel that passion.
yeah.
I've seen the earrings. Did you make other things as well? The earrings are so gorgeous. I'm like, of course, all the sparkle and the beads. I'm like, yes.
So these are not done by me. I have a hard time keeping the things I create because
Yes, people want
people
them.
they either want them or I'm like here, like I
Yeah.
just love giving away. Um, but this is a company in, I believe they're in BC. They're from BC or
Ooh,
Edmonton. I
gorgeous.
can't remember, but they're called Indie City. So this is more of
Okay.
like a modern earring. It's done with a 3D printer and they design it.
What?
Yeah,
That's
really
so cool.
cool.
I always get amazed by 3D printers. I'm like, how? It's so cool to me.
So I'm also a big supporter. Like I love to support other Indigenous artists. Like I support
Yes,
lots of things, but when I see, Indigenous people, it's really like it pulls on my heartstrings. So I'm
of
like, I'll
course.
support. Um,
Yes. Seeing
yeah, so
people out there doing it, doing the do, it's like, fuck yeah, like get it.
I know what it takes.
Well, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
So then I started from there. I sold quite a bit, and that's when I started to apply. I wanted to go to art school right away. So I did apply I got accepted to LaSalle, a private school in Montreal. And then my family kind of was like, well, since you want to be in business, like, why don't you try to do like business first? So I kind of listened, which I feel like I should have followed my heart. I should have went directly to fashion school. And I went to business school for a bit in Ottawa. And then from there I went back home for a bit because Ottawa was it was so expensive to be out there at my, a young age.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
At first I didn't know really anybody. It was really like a struggle, but I made a lot of friends, especially in the Indigenous community there. I did experience like really cool things being friends with people from other nations. Like we would sit and have beading parties and they would teach me different
Oh,
techniques.
I
So it was
love
really,
that.
yeah, it
That's
was really cool.
beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And so I was really grateful for that. I met all kinds of like different Indigenous people from across the country. And I stayed out there as long as I could until it got really expensive. So I headed back home and then I applied to NBCCD, so a design school in Fredericton.
Mm-hmm.
And I stuck around at home for about a year. I made some money. I did a little bit of saving and then I went into that school and my goal was to take the design course for 3 years. So I had to start like the foundations. After the fact, when I developed my portfolio during that first year, they were like, you didn't need to come to foundation. Like, that's a
You did not need to
requirement.
do this.
That's a requirement unless you have your portfolio ready, which I didn't in the span of time. Like I was just um applying to school and things like that was just like I didn't really have a ton of support. Like my mom wasn't really involved or anything like that. And so I was just so like at the time, like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, I just need to get in. I didn't really realize like the preparation I could have done. So I
Totally.
think like having that experience, that's also something I try to encourage young people to like, really, really see what you're doing. And if you have these skills already, like maybe there's a way, like, for example, for me, I could have prepared this portfolio and I could have bypassed that. But it was great. It was a great learning
Great
experience.
learning, exactly right. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed too in myself. I'll make mistakes or do things maybe not the, I say right way in air quotes, everybody, because
Yeah.
we all know there's lots of ways to do things. And then I look back to and I'm like, you know what? It was probably for a reason. I had to learn it that way. So, and also too, what I love is you're taking what you've learned and you're helping the youth with that. So I think that's awesome. You're paying it forward that way. You're like, this is what I've learned. So maybe this will help you on your journey too. So that's awesome.
Exactly. And I never forget because I listened to a lot of people growing up too, like in small ways of like advice. And I know when you're young, you're stubborn, you don't really like everything.
Right.
But I
Right.
found it was always true. Like they always were leading you in a direction that,
Yeah. And sometimes too, it's the messenger, maybe not the message. So you may not want to hear something from like your mom or your dad, but then if someone who you think is cooler, who might be an adult, says it, then you're like, oh, okay.
yeah, it's hilarious. And you really do think you know everything, like
Oh
at a
my
young.
God. Right. Yeah. And there's like not that there's no consequences, but kinda. You're just like, I'm just gonna do this. Like
Like we all do, and you just anyway. So
we
I
could go
tried.
down a whole other group of stories right there.
I try to I try to remember those things when it comes to like those life decisions, and especially very unique, like being a designer and stuff is very unique. And
Yeah.
it's like in the movies when you see people being like, no, like that's not really a career, like parents, like it's partially true, but at the end of the day, like I think that what I'm doing has taken me so far and has given me so many amazing opportunities versus maybe sitting, being an accountant or and no disrespect to that, but it's just like
It's
this is
not your
something I love.
alignment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh girl, I can so get behind that cuz like I'm so much a creative dreamer as well, so I can totally resonate with how you're speaking there. And also too, if you did a job like that, I guarantee it would suck your soul out every day and you'd be like I don't want to do this. And when things and it's awesome for people who are want to do that, driver, but when
Yeah.
it's not with what you're meant to do in this lifetime and what your soul is here to learn and teach and do and impact, it's not the tea. It's not going to work. It's not what's up. And I feel like you are so in alignment with what you're doing and just the way it has grown and the quality behind what you do. And you can tell you put your heart and your soul and your energy into it. And to me, that makes something so much more special because you know it's made with love and it's
Yeah.
just beautiful.
Well, I just got like a ton of chills when you were talking like that because
Yes.
it's like that's my little alarm or little bell to say that like, what you're saying is probably like so true to my soul, like
On the
speaking.
money. It's like I get the goosebumps all the
Yeah.
time too. It's like confirmation from the universe, creator,
Yes.
God, divine, whatever you want to call it. I'm like, yes, this is good.
Yeah.
I
So
love that.
I feel like from there, I just started exploring. And when I got to Fredericton, I did a lot of really cool things. I met a lot of cool people. I graduated from my program. I ended up having like my art in the Beaverbrook Museum, just really big, like
What?
milestones. Yeah.
That's
It was,
amazing. Okay, I have a question too. So with your design school, like you said you could have bypassed the foundation part. Like okay, I'm very curious about it because again, that was as a child one of the 5,000 dreams. I was like, I'm going to be a designer. So I'm just genuinely curious because I think it's cool. Like, is it just purely clothing or does it go into accessories too or how does it work?
oh, your fundamental, your first year, if you're in, I don't know what it's like in other larger schools across like the country or wherever, but for this particular school, you had to take the foundations, and it was really amazing because it exposed you to. We had classes like color concept. We had classes
Ooh.
like creative process. We had art classes like drawing.
Hmm.
So where we actually drew like bodies, like we had models come in. It was really cool.
So you got like live models and you got to draw me like one of your French girls, Jack. Like,
Yeah. It was I had a friend, she was indigenous from Maine. I forget what her tribe is, but she was just giggling away like she could handle it. So it was really cool. We drew like fruit bowls, things like that. And then we did other courses. Like I took a tattoo course, for example,
What?
and
That is
yeah,
so cool. I'm sorry. I just think that's
it was
awesome.
so cool.
So
And so
multifaceted.
you got to like dabble in things that maybe interested you and you didn't know you're interested in, like textiles, and
Yeah.
it was really neat. So at first I was all kind of peed off because I was like, oh, I just wanted to go right into my thing. But once I did all that, like even entrepreneurship classes, like it was just very cool.
Yes. Oh my God. And entrepreneurship classes, like, because like I went to university and did marketing and business. That was my degree. And it was great, but it's so crazy how it changes so fast. Like what I learned then, sure, some of the basics are there still, but like social media has totally flipped things
Oh,
like in that world, even in
right.
business, how we buy things, how everything. And I sometimes am so curious, like, what do those classes look like now compared to what it looked like when I took it? Because I'm sure I would be getting a lot more information. Because, like I said, social media is its own beast. I'm just like, whoa.
I know. And it's crazy the pressure that gets put on people and young people to, go get your degrees and stuff like that. Like I'm for it all. And that's what I encourage. I think being educated is such an amazing tool and so healthy for you all around. But Sometimes people have little to no education and they're very successful. So I have no judgment. I think your path you choose is
Right.
the path you choose, right?
I agree because I've said this literally since I was in these courses. I was like, yes, sure, if you're an accountant, yes, you have to go to school. Like you're not just, or maybe unless you're crazy really smart with that kind of stuff. I don't know. But for what I'm good at, the creative part, I really feel like not you either have it or you don't, but it is something you can learn, but you naturally, some people just naturally have that talent, right? And business is a lot about your who you are, how you present yourself, how you network with people. It's not just all what you can learn in a book. So I'm with you there. I feel like you said, whatever your path is, however you get there is how you get there. Like,
Yeah.
look at me, I'm doing a podcast right now. I didn't learn that in university, but it so speaks to what I love. I love connecting. I love public speaking, that kind of thing. So it makes sense. It works. It's like all the my journey of like being like in 5,000 different directions, not knowing like what creative venture do I choose? And then it's like this. It's like, oh, and you know what you were saying about alignment? I feel it in every part of my being. I'm like, this is what you're supposed to do right now. So also everybody listen to that feeling because it's
Yeah.
not, she ain't lying.
It's so true. And that's what I encourage people. And there's a lot of there, and it's on the flip side too, like where's art going to take you? Where's this going to take you? Where's that going to take you? And it's like, you would be so surprised that once you do follow, your dreams, the things you love, like the opportunities just,
It just
it's
like
insane.
I don't want to say it showers on you, but I truly do believe, I've said this in previous episodes, like when you are on your right path or you take that scary leap or you do the thing that maybe is more controversial or it's not the cookie cutter version of what you should do, also who cares? There's no such word as what you should do. Like do you, honey? But it's almost like the universe rewards you. And I hate saying that because it doesn't mean the whole thing is like magical. I mean, we would all love that, wouldn't we? But it
Yeah.
really truly does. Like it will give you like those positive, like you were saying, your work was featured in a museum like immediately. It's almost like creator being like, yes, like keep going, like this, you're doing it right. Not that you need, I hate saying that too, because it's not that we need validation or stuff like that. But as a creative, it's really nice to know what you're doing is creating an impact or is having an effect or inspiring someone or helping someone. So I
100%.
agree with that.
And that's the drive, right? I think that when you can impact people, you can help people, you can be of service in ways. I think that
Yes.
that's you're doing the right thing. And so that's where this all spoke to me, and being able to draw from my culture and everything I did within, like, some of my classes. I took some classes when I was there that had Indigenous base, like because there was an Indigenous program there. It was kind of fizzing out, but they were like, you're Indigenous, please take some courses so we can continue this. So I did. I didn't want to. I wanted to, but they were just like, I'm like, I kind of know all that stuff. But, and anyways, it was still amazing. I learned a lot as well and got to network there as well. But
Yeah.
I would bring that with me, like in my other classes that weren't Indigenous kind of focused. And so I had a really great experience. I met some really cool people and I graduated from that. From there, I started, like, throughout that experience in school, it was, again, you're in school, you're a starving student, you're a poor student,
Yes.
and it's so hard. But I started basically running an unofficial business by then. So by the time I got to be there and was going to school full time, I also was doing orders for people. I was doing mini collections. So, like, come seasons, I would post up earrings like, this is my, fall inspired collection.
Yeah.
I started to draw little things I learned from, like, watching Fashion Week, or
Mm-hmm.
being aligned with that kind of high fashion stuff. And I would take color concepts from, like, what's trending right now, and then,
Mm-hmm.
like, so that I wanted Indigenous people, non-Indigenous people, but at first my focus was Indigenous because
Mm-hmm.
I thought for a little bit, like, would non-Indigenous people want to wear this type of stuff? So I kind of took that concept and I was like, I want that. That's what I want. I want my designs to be on everybody. I don't want anyone to feel limited. So I started kind of combining both so that it would be intriguing for everybody and not just have like, traditional colors or like things that would be culturally inappropriate for someone to wear.
That's what I was gonna ask. I was just because like I'm always very mindful. Like I never want to be disrespectful, but I also celebrate so much. So I'm like, what is appropriate, what's not. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I always try to keep in mind.
Yeah, so I can like definitely chat a little bit about that. So I teach at Mount Allison for my second year as
Oh,
a
cool.
part-time. Yeah, so technically, I don't like saying that I'm a prof, but technically I'm like a
You
teacher.
are. You're a
Yeah.
prof. I love that's like she's a badass bitch. She's a prof. She's a fashion designer. Like
So
I love that.
this is my second year as a part-time, I guess, prof or teacher, however you
Wow.
want to call it.
Oh,
And
girl, you're a prof. You're at a university.
I teach second and third year students. And my course is called Beadwork, Introduction to like Cultural and History of Beadwork. And I was able to have full range on my syllabus, teach, what I wanted. And so that was amazing, super
Mm-hmm.
rewarding last year. It was very scary. I was shaking, like a leaf. I was terrified to go in there and be like, I'm not, I don't have that type of education to be a teacher, but they were like, nope, this is very unique. You are a master in your craft. Like we want you to.
Yeah.
So terrified as I was, I just did it. And it was incredible. So my class consists of 20 people. I have a waiting list.
Oh my
Um,
God, that's awesome.
I'm in a really brand new building in the Mount A, like amazing studio area. 90% of my students, 80% of my students are non-Indigenous. So
Wow.
one of my biggest things, they're mostly art majors and things like that. So it's really cool. I loved it. But one of my major things was to talk about cultural appropriation
Yes.
because I'm teaching non-Indigenous people how to bead. And so my course kind of runs, the way I kind of have it, like introductions, we have hands-on beading, we projects, things like that. But throughout, I do things like I highlight local beaders or beaders across um the East Coast, and then I do like beaders that have impacted and influenced like the mainstream, like bigger, like the world, things like that.
Yeah.
I bring in some guest speakers. We talk about like techniques, and my major point is the appropriation. And some of the things I say in there is just like, I'm teaching this. I have the gift to be able to share this with everybody, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. And so that number one, that's, kind of to be respected. I'm
Mhm.
not teaching anyone here how to be Indigenous. That's not the goal. The goal is to participate in Indigenous, art. And this is a living art that continues, has been kind of since the beginning of time for us. And it has
Yeah.
shifted and became something super incredible that, we now are able to share. And we're not the only peoples that do it on this side of the world. It's done in different ways and in different styles across the world with other Indigenous peoples. And so I kind of go from there and I talk about how important it is to, if you're going to create anything, I want it to be created by you, who you are. I taught them how to do like what a creative process I go through as an Indigenous person, like color concepts, all those things that, I've learned, and I'm able to name them now because of my
Yes.
schooling. And so I teach them that bring a piece of yourself into your work. And if you're ever going to recreate Indigenous beadwork, the important thing is to specify that you aren't Indigenous, but you're creating this Indigenous piece and you credit inspiration. So if you drew it from like, one of my students did MMIWG, which is a huge thing in the, missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Mhm.
And she was like, look, I'm non-Indigenous, but I feel I need to create awareness. So I kind of explained the best way to do it. Then this is from me, like my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of questions that come up are like, can I wear Indigenous jewelry? 100%.
That's what
You
I
can,
wanted to know because I've been
yep.
gifted stuff and I of course wore it, but and I had these beautiful beaded earrings and they broke and I was so sad because I loved them so much. They were so beautiful. So yes, I was very curious about that.
Yes. So 100% you can wear Indigenous. It's essentially Indigenous, art. It's some of the
Yeah.
things I teach though is like the things not to do are like, wear what mainstream sees as a war bonnet. Like that's so cliche and so
Mm-hmm.
like past Hollywood that
Yeah.
that's inappropriate. Traditional garments. So like if you sometimes, events happen in history where garments or like pieces get put into like auctions or museums or flea markets, and then non-indigenous people end up it coming into their possession. So things like that, like you need to do research. I tell them on like what it is. Once you know what it is, if it's art, 100%, because a lot of our ways before colonization and when impacts colonization happened and we met settlers, we did a lot of trading, we did a lot of customizing things to intrigue the settlers. It was
Right.
bartering and trading, and none of it was not allowed or frowned upon. But we made sure that we wouldn't have, given like a traditional regalia or things like that. So
Right.
those are some of the things like, it's, you don't wear traditional regalia. One of the other things is identifying as Indigenous if you aren't. That's a big thing that's been happening. And,
That I have, that I'm like, what? Like, I've seen that as well, and it kind of blows my mind a little bit. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, why? Like, my brain
but
does not compute. Like,
yes, it's scary because people don't realize how harmful that is and how toxic
yeah,
that can be to Indigenous, people who are fighting, the fight, living
yes, who've
life,
lived
walking
the
the talk.
generations of this. Like, yeah,
It's very, and who practice this living art. It's so important that we are very sharing and caring and people of that nature. So it's sometimes it's difficult when you get burnt, you share and then you kind of
of
it
course.
yeah,
It's like anything in life, right? Like, it's like those teaching moments, and you're like, it's so challenging because in a completely different way, but I understand that like you're open or you share with someone and then it's used
yeah,
not for it's not used with love, let's just say.
no.
And it's difficult to sometimes trust again to be able to be like, okay, can I share this or not? My
Yeah.
story, completely different experience, 100%, but I can understand how that would feel to, have an experience not go so great and then not be sure how
Oh,
to proceed.
you're spot on because that's happened to me where you share and then things get taken out of context or exploited. So that's the major thing is we talk about exploitation of the art, and that if you it's really difficult because there are lots of I guess I would say non-indigenous people who have lineage who are self-identifying. So that's very unclear right now in like indigenous world and in the non-indigenous world, not that they're different, but in ways of like that identification, so because who we are comes with like, I would say people view it as benefits, but it's really not because of the whole, all the impacts we face, all the trauma. I would
Yeah.
give to not feel those ways and have to carry so much burden as a Indigenous person. I would give that to for any benefit. So it's
Hmm.
really a difficult scenario because sometimes that's the person's goal. Most times that's the person's goal. And
That
so
I'm sorry, I keep getting so emotional today, but it breaks my heart because it's just not right.
yeah, it's really hard. And so it's it's hard to continue a mindset that's positive sometimes because it's very frustrating. So in my course I teach that in a really good way. I try to say like, look, you know, I encourage you to do beadwork, but do it from what is called within you. You can do it from, and that's where we learn, we really pull back the layers of like what's meaningful to you. So I do projects on like maybe it's your cat, maybe it's your family,
Yeah.
maybe it's like it can be anything. And I tell them the same thing is that's where I draw inspiration. And because I'm Mi'gmaq and Indigenous, I have that culture part to kind of call upon. But I tell them you guys also come from cultures. You're not just,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just like like white. You have like maybe you're from you have German in you or something, all of
Exactly.
those
We
things.
all have heritage somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
and I have my grandfather was, what was he now? Irish.
I was gonna say,
So
got any Irish going? 'Cause that's like my roots are very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
Irish. I'm pretty sure there's Scottish there too, but we always celebrated the Irish heritage big time.
Yeah. And so I try to teach them too, like if I have, Irish, I'm not going to go and disrespect, Irish culture by in any means. It's really cool to know that. I know that maybe that somewhere down the lineage I have that. That's really cool. But in no way do I have desire to go and find a way to disrespect that or claim to be,
Exactly.
you know. So I try to flip the switch to have them kind of see, what the impacts are when somebody does
Yeah.
that. So that's one of my big focuses in my course is to really push that out and say like, look, I want all of you to bead. If you continue this after, that's great for you, but just make sure it's done in a good way, in the right way. Like,
The right
and
intentions with a pure heart. Yeah.
yeah, and like you have a lot to offer as an individual. You don't have to be Indigenous to shine in the beadwork
Yes.
world, right? Like you can do so many amazing things. And they brought their game my last course. It was like some of the work was incredible. Like one girl, she created what do you call that? The square QR codes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
that. And it was
What? With
like
the beads?
with the beads, and it was to a sensory like experience on YouTube of like birds she was into. So I'm like, this is
What?
so incredible. It
My
was
mind is
incredible.
blown right now. I'm like, what? What?
It
You're so
was
talented.
so talented, and she was non-Indigenous. So I was like, this is the stuff that like you're creating, and it makes me super proud and like emotional too, and like overwhelmed that I was able to teach my cultural living art to somebody who's non-Indigenous, took it the right way and created something magical from it. And they all pretty much did.
Yeah.
So it
Oh
was
my
huge.
God. I love that. I'm so happy we're having this conversation because these are always things that I feel many people may think of or not, and they're not sure. And it's just, I thank you again for being so open and sharing this because, like you said, it's educating, and to me, it's for a higher purpose and for all around better things to come. So I love that you're sharing this because I was always like seeing beautiful beadwork done, and I always was like, can I have that? Like, can I wear it? Like, if it's not gifted to me by someone who is Indigenous, like, I just wasn't sure. So now that I
Nope.
know that, I'm like, okay, let's find us some beautiful pink sparkly earrings, please.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, the rule of thumb, I would say, is if an Indigenous person is in business and they're selling, chances like 90% of the time, if not 99% of the time, they want everyone they're inclusive.
Yeah.
Um, but again, if it's like a traditional piece you find out somewhere, things like that, it's for sure good to ask questions. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people right now too are very inclusive with even like ribbon skirts. So like today is
I was
National Ribbon
curious about, I
Skirt.
know I saw that. I saw you post
Yeah.
that National Ribbon Skirt, January 4th. That's when we're recording, everyone who's listening.
Yeah.
I was curious about the ribbon skirt because to me, I thought that was a very sacred thing as well. So you can speak more on that if you'd like.
Yeah. So ribbon skirts are traditionally for ceremony, which is the
Mhm.
main purpose, right? So there is a bit of a difference between like what they've evolved to today. So that's the other thing that I don't think like the average Canadian or somebody who is an Indigenous doesn't realize that so much evolution comes to even our art, just like anything, right? There's
Oh my
evolution.
gosh, fashion is the perfect
That's
example.
crazy.
Like it always recycles, but it constantly evolves. We'll take pieces from this era, this era, this era, and we'll make something different. Like hell yeah. And that's something I love about fashion is it's always shifting, changing. It's so open to interpretation. Like we were saying before we hit record today, we were talking about interpretation. So love that.
Yeah, and it's like Chanel, right? You don't see other people, knocking off is technically illegal, right? So it's like the same thing. You don't
Yeah.
go and you take, something like that, and it's like that with ribbon skirts. So the ones that are for ceremony and traditional practices are what as an individual I own for those reasons. That's something I probably wouldn't give away or I wouldn't lend, things like that. But in terms of like my skirt, what I want is other people to be able to purchase that and to, if you're practicing allyship and you're like, this is Indigenous made, it's an Indigenous ribbon skirt, and you're wearing it in a fashion sense, like I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay,
For sure.
cool.
Yeah, but for sure there are Indigenous people that might have a bit of resistance to that.
Hmm.
And it's so very new because it's like people have old ways of thinking and there's new concepts, and there, I'm not going to say there isn't going to be resistance, but I don't think you would experience it like really intensely. I think that it's just some people's views. But like I said, I think if you're wearing it with good intention, you're going to something along those lines, or you're supporting
Yeah.
a fashion designer, things like that. I think it's like 100%
Do you
the
see it as
way,
celebratory? Because I do. Like, to me, it's a beautiful thing. Like, as long as, like you said, it's done with good intentions and it's pure, I feel it's such a celebration and like it's beautiful. And I'm like, why not bring more attention to something so beautiful? And maybe people can then learn more. I just think the ripple effect it can have
yeah.
is big.
And I think the ribbon skirt is such a beautiful piece for a woman specifically, because it's something that can be worn. Now we wear it to celebrations, to like, like you said, graduations, things like that. But then there's also a time where we wear our ceremonial ones to very serious, ceremonies and things like that, events that are something that isn't openly shared as much because they're very
Mhm.
sacred.
That's right.
But I think, like you said, like being able to see allyship and other people wearing that and being proud of that and it evolving in that sense for sure. And that's another good thing because a lot of ceremonies welcome people of all race and color and things like that. So to
Yeah.
have that, and then maybe someday in the future you head into that space and you're like, oh, I actually own a ribbon skirt or things like that. So I definitely don't discourage it. And I think it would be so beautiful if non-Indigenous people were able to purchase that in the right setting, the right space, the right time, all of those things.
Yes.
But I do see how there might be some resistance. I think the
Mhm.
more it evolves, the better things will get. And I think it's time that we share, the beauty and like the things we have to offer. And we are both women, regardless of our race. And I think that if you want to feel the power of wearing a ribbon skirt,
Oh,
and you
yes.
know what I mean?
I like that you said that because even like I'm like this with most things I wear, including like this, right? I have like a citron crystal on right now. I'm very like I love my spiritual things, but to me, I think things hold magic and power and energy and I feel like I felt this way since I was a kid. Like I'm thinking back to that plastic ring I used to wear, but I used to pretend like there was magical powers that would come in and out of it. And now that I'm older, I'm like, girl, you were so evolved and you didn't even know it. Like you were
Yeah.
thinking about energy and things, right? So I feel like the beadwork you create and your ribbon skirts, if also we'll plug your website at the end because they're gorgeous and they're so cool and different and modern. I was looking at your website and I was like, these are so cool. But like the beadwork anything like to me it holds magic and it holds whatever energy or love you put into it, which is a lot because beadwork's not for the faint of heart. Like that takes some talent. Like
A lot of time. But
yes.
that's another thing. I have a spiritual side to me as well that I don't always share, come forward with. I do practice ceremony and things like that as an Indigenous person, but I also am very into like crystals and intentions
Yes.
and things like that. I love that. So one of the things that I realize is that, beads are kind of like stone and glass and senses. So I always took that seriously in the sense of how I'm feeling and what I'm putting out into my creation is going to have reflection, is going to carry energy. And so I always try to do things with like a clear mind. If I'm feeling a type of way, I'm like, I'm not touching it for a little bit. Like,
Yeah, we're not
and
putting this into that.
yeah. Or sometimes I'm using my frustration as fuel and then I'll kind of
Yeah,
clean it off after I smudge my piece or whatever it is so that it resets and that when I do make
I
the
love
purchase.
that.
Yeah, it's like those things are really, really important to me when I do create. And that's kind of all the behind the scenes stuff I really don't talk about, but it's so important and it's huge. And my campaign that I released in August, the story behind all of that was just like I came out of something that was really difficult for me. And just at the time, I've experienced a lot of like, you kind of feel when you have friends or you have people in your life that are throwing you shade because maybe you're advancing or you're doing something that, and that's so hard because I'm not that person. If I could take everybody with me, I would.
Preach,
And I want,
girl.
yeah, and I want that for everybody. If somebody's, I think there's room for everybody at the table.
Yes. You said that, I think, on your site, and I was like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel the exact same way. There's so much of this competition, or people will project based on their own feelings because they see, not you in particular, but I'll say you, but
Yeah.
you flying or soaring or whatever, or achieving your dreams. But like you just said, there is room for everyone. And also, sometimes people are only seeing the highlight reel or the wins, or they're seeing this, but they don't see everything else that goes into it. There's
Right.
so much to being a creator that is not flashy, that is not beautiful. You've probably been in tears at certain points. You've probably been feeling all the feels. We all have. I've been there. Like,
Or the
so
struggles. There's so many
yeah.
struggles, like personally within your art, like just things that are
Yes.
so difficult. So when I released that campaign, it was about bringing up one another, and I used a relation to flowers. So it's named Wasweggle Nigweggle, which means growing
I
flower.
love that. Can you
Yeah.
say that again? It sounds really cool.
Wasweggle Nigweggle. So it
I
means growing
like that.
flowers. Yeah. And I said like in my spiel that flowers have space, they can grow beside each other, but it kind of, you never dull each other's beauty. You have your own beauty, you have your own growth. And so that was my campaign and what I've kind of came out of before that and what I was experiencing. And I just want to say, of course I highlighted Indigenous models and I'm an Indigenous person, but it really was about that for everybody, especially women. We can be ways with each other. There's cattiness, there's, a lot of
It's
competition.
unfortunate.
It
Yes, so
is.
much competition. And I'm just like, girls, chill. Like, we all can do the things. Like, come on.
So I think it's beautiful when creators come together, whether you're doing the same thing or not, and you
Us
just,
right now.
yeah,
Create
you
magic.
100%. So I'm always up for collaborations. I'm always up for, seeing what other people have to offer as long as their intentions are good, because I've worked with people with bad intentions and it's really damaging and it really makes you not want to do it again. But
100%. It's very disheartening, especially like I know I'm very like I feel the feels times a million, but when I do something, you're getting all of me, my
yeah,
heart, my soul, whether it comes to art, relationships, work, whatever it is, you're not just getting half, like you're getting everything. So I find sometimes when people stomp on that, it hurts so much more because you're just
oh,
like, really? Like,
bad. I feel that, and that's what I went through. And so I kind of drew from that. I get inspired, I took a situation that was hard and made it into something, beautiful. And I definitely
yes.
released it not thinking like, I just thought everybody's going to be like, wow. And so when I did, one of my goals for this project was, of course, to tell my story, to release my campaign. I rebranded myself, got myself a new logo. I did like new website, all of these things.
Fresh, everything new. I
Fresh.
like that.
Like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the thing that
Yep.
scares me the most, the thing that
Oh,
I'm like, I've always had a little bit of a business, but it was never official. So now it's super official.
now it's here, it's out, she's arrived.
Yeah. So I was like really nervous and scared for that. Um, but then once I did it, it was like magic. And then I was like, okay, I put out the website. I think it was on what, no, the skirts, the product garments were for sale on August 11 at 11:11. So like those
I
things.
saw that too. And 11 is like has always been my number. So anything with 11, I was just like, this is like meant to be
Yeah.
this connection right now because it was just everything was aligning. So love that. Here for
It
that.
it was so cool. Just the way I did it. Like I don't have marketing background, but I feel like I did it in such a way that was appealing.
And
Like,
like I said, you got the natural. It's
yeah.
literally like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, love what I learned, but I feel like I kind of knew most of it. Just
Yeah.
saying. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
get that. Like it's one of those things. I think you naturally kind of have it.
It's like easier for you than maybe somebody else, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So I hyped it up, I released them, and I sold out in under 5 minutes. But the biggest thing was
Oh my God.
I,
Let's
I
just
was setting,
celebrate that for a second. Under 5 minutes. Whoa.
but I was setting myself apart. What I did was, so typically I charge like when I started, like, no, I wouldn't say when I started, before I launched, maybe a ribbon skirt was like 200, 250, depending on detail of these things, right? These skirts were like 5, 6,
Yeah.
$600. So I contemplated that for a long time because I'm like, that's quite a bit of
Did you
money. Like,
battle with yourself? Because I feel
oh,
like with
hard.
where I'm progressing to, it's coming to things where I'm going to have to start choosing costs and prices. And I feel like I know it's a lot of like wounding in myself that I'm like, no, you are worth this. You can,
Yeah,
like, it is worth it. And it's so hard for me to be like, but am I worth that much? Like, you know what I mean? So I feel
that
like
was me.
right?
That was 100% me. And I talked to my husband about it. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this too. One, Indigenous women who probably want these skirts so bad, but two, like, I don't think anybody's gonna buy them.
And
And
under
he was
five
like,
minutes later,
he was like,
gone.
nope. He's like, do it. So how I got myself to that point was like, I thought about everything. I was like, okay, I have over 20 years of experience doing
Mm-hmm.
this for a long time. I built my name. It took me a very long time. I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And if they sit on the site for 4 or 5 months, they sit on the site for 4 or 5 months. Somebody will come across one and be
Yes. And you just went for it. I like that you were like, you know what? Let's go. We're doing it. Like, and that's always when the magic happens, people. When you just
literally,
say go.
I just jumped and I under 5 minutes, I I couldn't believe it. It was like I felt, this is so weird to say, but I told my husband, like, if I died tomorrow, this sounds crazy. I feel like I lived part of my dream. Like
Look at
if
my, you're making me cry so much. This, like, I'm just like, it's happy tears, it's compassionate tears, it's all the tears, but I fucking love that so much.
and it's like when you do something like that that speaks to your spirit and your heart, I've never felt that way before. I just said I literally felt like I lived my dream. Even if I don't carry on or whatever happens, it was so magical that I had a really difficult year this year, and that was probably the most magical moment for me. And I'm so excited to do more. But unfortunately, after my launch, my husband and I lost our sister. So my husband lost his
Oh,
sister at a really young
so
age.
sorry.
Yeah, I lost my sister-in-law. So we kind of it's been really, really rough. I want to say from August, end of August till about just before the new year was really difficult. I couldn't find it in me to create again.
No, you got to
Just for
heal for
now. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I like that you're honoring that. That's another thing that's so important, listeners. Honor when things happen, anything, and you need that space and that time to heal, give it to yourself because it's not going to go anywhere. Like it's going to be there until you let yourself feel it again. So, just I like that you're allowing yourself that space.
Yeah, I did. And so I've been working on it. I've had to go through a ton of therapy sessions. I had to do a ton of
Yeah.
things for myself, turning to, cultural ways, things like that.
Hmm.
My husband and I, it was really hard between us. It rocked our world, and she was very young, and we miss her so much every day. And my grandfather, actually, beginning of last year, 2022, he passed away, and he was a big important role in my life. So I was coming from grief. I kind of went through that. I went through my experiences. I pulled myself up. I did this big thing. It was very magical. It was like I said, I lived my dream, even if it was for 5 minutes.
Yes.
And so to be met with grief again was very difficult. So
Hmm.
we've been struggling. It's a lot better now. We've worked through a lot of it. It's just I put pause on my creating, and I had no plans for that because I was like, I'm gonna be like a train, like I'm going forward, like
Yeah, all the
nothing
way.
can
Let's
stop
go.
me. Like, yeah, my engine's ready. I have all the things, and it just,
Then life is like, we're gonna do this for a minute.
yeah,
It's so
life is,
challenging. Life, you
oh,
never know, right? It's always those ebbs and flows, those curveballs, and it's very humbling always. And I feel like that's how we can cultivate greater gratitude is when these things happen that rock our worlds and they're not pleasant, they're hard, they're tragic, they're the heartbreaking moments, but when you give yourself that time and can come out of it and see silver lining, I find for myself anyway, I can generally be like, okay, at least like what was the lesson here? Or is my gratitude cultivating more? And just that type of thing. Cause life ain't never gonna stop. That's one thing we have learned.
That's one thing too I'm learning, because I feel like the experiences I've had in the last 2-3 years have been really massive versus all
Yeah.
the other years, but a great friend of mine told me sometimes you have to suffer a big loss to get a big gain. And I'm a
Yes.
really big
It's like the
believer.
bigger the pain, the bigger the purpose. Sometimes I
Yeah,
feel like that too.
exactly. And so I'm big on manifestation. I'm big on all of those things. So lately I don't want to say anything to like, I just am existing again, and I'm
Yeah.
finding my sparkle again from all of that. And I've taken some time. I've actually was in a corporate job alongside doing all these things. So I left that.
Good
Um,
girl.
yeah, I was like, you know what? This is no longer serving me. Great.
No.
I've had a lot of great things there, opportunities, amazing people. I just said to myself, on top of everything on my plate, this is something I cannot do anymore, because I feel that I have talents and I have things that, they don't fit in that corporate world. And I'm
No,
like, what
and
am I
you're
doing?
making, no, you were, okay, that's like the biggest dream. Any entrepreneur here is someone who's walked away from the corporate. It's like you're getting rounds of applause all over the world from everybody right now because that is you. I mean, yes, maybe there were some things in life that had to shake things up in a not great way to make that decision, but I think it's for a bigger purpose because look at you. Like, I know the dark moments we don't feel like we still have the sparkle. I still see your sparkle, honey. I'm like, yes, like I see so much talent in what you do, and it's so important and amazing. And there's no other path to me. I'm like, this is what she has to do is create and just exude who you are and teach. Like I feel like that's such a beautiful combination because you are doing what you love, but you can also help teach and pass on the beautiful wisdom, like so much wisdom in this episode alone. So I can just imagine how lucky your students are to have you. I know for myself too, some of my teachers, profs in my life have created such big impacts in my own life, in my teaching. So you're creating awesomeness everywhere you go. So I think that's so great that you left the corporate.
And I just want to tell you too, like, since we're in this moment, is you are literally the first thing I've accepted to do back again since everything. I haven't really been doing the things that, because of everything, I've gotten really cool opportunities like CBC radio, and people want to talk to me. And during that
Yeah.
time, I kind of was like, no, like I'm not doing the things right now. Like I'm just healing. So when you asked me, I was like, oh my God, like I definitely heard a few of your podcasts, and I just thought to myself when they're like, oh, this is so cool. And I seen like how big your following's getting, and like I met her, like I know who she is.
I know her.
So it was just really cool to see that. And I never thought that, no, I didn't think that would be here. I just was just like cheering for you, and in the corner, like, go girl. Like,
I
I
appreciate
don't know
that
if he
so
remembers me,
much.
but you know
Oh,
what I
I
mean?
do. I do. And it's amazing to me as well is like the certain connections and networks that we meet at different times in our lives, like wild because I feel like at that point when we met, I was in such a dark period of my life. And it's just so interesting to see like where you are, what you go through, and then where you end up, right? Because I feel like it's been
Yeah.
what, like pretty much 10 years since I've
Here.
met you. Like, isn't that crazy when you actually say it out loud? It's like, wait, what? 10 years?
I'm that old. And I thought you were so, like, when I met you, I loved your energy. I was like, she's so sweet. Like,
Thank
you
you.
know, and that was coming out of that time too, again, where I had resistance to, all of like non-Indigenous people. It was just hardships. But when I met you, I was like, oh my God, she's so sweet. I just love her. Like, and we just
Thank
kind of
you.
stayed connected in a small way since. But being
Yeah.
here now, it's just like I'm kind of like, wow. And so when you did ask me, I kind of thought about it too. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready, but I was like, you know what? I feel really good, like a really good vibe, really good intentions. I've heard the work she's done before. Like it seems so like it would be easy for me to do this with you,
Oh
and
my
it would
gosh,
be
that's the biggest
easy.
compliment that I could get is if someone feels comfortable or like it's a good
Yeah.
energy. Literally, that's the best compliment. And that's what I always want is my guests to be comfortable and be ready and there's never any rush. Like, when the time is right, I truly believe the universe always makes it happen. So that means
Well,
so
I'm
much to
so
me.
appreciative. Yeah, I'm so appreciative, and I think like, I definitely wish you like the stars and the moon and what you're doing, and I think that you have it, girl. So keep doing
Thank you.
it. You know what
My God, I feel like the tears just keep welling up in my eyes this episode. I'm like, okay. But
I
they're
mean?
used to that by now. Yeah, I'm an easy crier. Sometimes it's like literally a cartoon, and I'm like, oh. Does not take much. I have such a compassionate heart. I feel so much like that empathicness. It's just like sometimes a little too much. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I need a break from other people's energy for a second.
It's a blessing and like a curse, really. It is.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because, like, when the energy's hype, I am up here. I'm like, whoa, let's go. But then,
Yeah.
on the flip side, I'm like, I've developed so many different things over the years to help. I haven't done this in a long time, but I used to call it the happy bubble. And I literally envisioned like this iridescent, sparkly, pinkish bubble around me. And if someone was being nasty, I'm like, okay, your energy is deflecting off of my bubble. But I feel
That's
like I
like
need to
that
bring that
too.
back.
So like for me, I get told to by people like cultural people and just people I surround myself with, like you have to protect your energy and you have to find something that works for you, and like your bubble. Sometimes I use like like a medicine pouch, but I also use like
Yeah.
crystals, and it's just a way
Yes. I'm
to
like reaching for my crystals. I'm like, where are they?
I
They're
know I have some
everywhere.
over there. And so I call on those tools to help me to repel sometimes the energy, because when you
Mm,
care and you have a big heart and you want good, it isn't always that way. But one thing I've learned is you have to keep who you are, and you have to nurture that part of you, and you can't let the negativity change who you are, I feel, because there's been times where, I've given and given, and I wouldn't say received, but things have just always been not good for me. So it's like, I don't want to give anymore, but given is who I am, or being of service is who I am in ways. So I can't stop doing that when, maybe there's one bad apple that it ruins that experience. So
yes, I love
that's,
that you said that so much because I can totally relate to that. It can be so disheartening. And like, I feel like, sometimes you've got a lot and you can keep going, but then there's just going to be points I find for myself anyway where it's just so defeating because you're like, I'm a good person. Like, I
yeah,
put good out there, but I feel sometimes my light triggers the darkness in others sometimes, which is fine. That's cool. It just highlights where they need to grow, but
yeah,
it's hard at times not to take it to my heart because I,
for
I
sure.
know, right? Like logically, I know it's not about me, but
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like, but is it? Because they're making it seem like it is. So,
yeah. That's a big lesson that I even still struggle with, because you can do so much good, or want so much good for somebody, but they may not, like you said, you trigger the
yeah,
dark. So I'm a firm believer in that, and that's something too I struggle with. But once I feel the pain, I kind of get through it, and I'm just like you said, it's not me,
yes.
it's them. I remember who I am, and who I am is somebody that, maybe likes to give, and, all these things. So I keep moving forward in that sense. But yeah, I feel you when you say that. Like, I'm like,
Right.
oh,
It's like, and two, it's sometimes those practices that bring you back. Like I found in myself, they've changed a little. I'm like, okay, what brings me back to the, and it's not in a bad way. It's a good thing. Cause it's like, okay, cool. It shows I'm growing and like maybe,
yeah,
a way that brought me back in the past. I don't need it that way anymore, but I need this now. So yeah, it's about that, the bounce back, right? Cause 100% you got to feel it. We're going to say it right now. You got to feel them because that'll come back and bite you in the ass eventually. Like I used to try to avoid my pain or numb my pain. That don't work. Works for a bit. Then it's like, okay, now I'm coming out full force. How about
yeah.
now? I'm like, okay.
And like you said, I'm very familiar with trauma, and not just like I've had personal, we all do.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you carry it as a whole, like a whole race or a whole, group of marginalized people, it's very difficult. So I'm no stranger to trauma, but I'm
Yeah.
also no stranger to healing. I think it's so important to heal, and that's what I want to do, with my campaigns, with releasing collections, is I want to talk about the hard stuff, but I think that it's important to talk about it, educate it so that healing can continue to take place. And so one of my big things is like, this was a very personal campaign. It was a very positive, beautiful,
Yeah, you
flower.
took something painful and turned it into
Yeah.
beauty. I love
But not
that.
everybody would meet that with the eye, right? They don't know the
Exactly.
so,
All the ins and outs that we were
yeah.
saying. Yeah.
So other things I want to definitely shine light on is like I said before, MMIWG, how huge that is. And
Yes.
I'm a big advocate for that. So my husband actually, he lost a sister prior to this sister, and she was MMIWG. So
Stop. Oh my
my husband has
God.
a lot of trauma, and so we both do, but meeting him really opened my eyes for that, MMIWG, and
Yeah.
just wanting to heal, wanting that for him as well. And he's been on a really long journey and a really hard and painful one. And my heart breaks because sometimes I feel like, wow, like how much more can he personally take? Like we all have trauma, none is greater than the other. But for me, being my husband, it's so
Of
heavy
course,
on my
that's your person. You love him. That's, of
heart.
course. I would, if it were my boyfriend, I would feel the exact, like, because you take that, especially being an empathic, feely person. It's just like, that's your heart too.
Yeah. So now it's like when I knew that I did want to do things, I became a big advocate. So that's another thing through my fashion that I want to be an advocate in ways and talk about some hard stuff or
Absolutely. And it is so powerful to me because it tells a story,
yeah,
because it gives insight to these things. But you're creating something powerful and beautiful and unique and special from that. And I just think, as a way to live life, when you can turn your pain into purpose, you're doing it
yeah,
right.
exactly. And so that's like my goals. And I'll quickly share this story, how the Nikes came to be and how the story was
Okay.
that.
Yes, because like, okay, I saw this and like, who doesn't love a good pair of Nike Air Force Ones? Like, hello, those are my go-to shoes always.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to say it, you can say it, but what you created with them, you can tell them. I'm going to get too excited. So go ahead.
So that comes from a really unique and cool relationship we developed. So he's a Grammy nominated music producer. He's worked with people like Kanye West, Missy Elliott, like the list goes on, Lizzo. He just did a shoot.
Missy, Lizzo, yes.
Yeah, he just did a shoot with, I think it was Khloe Kardashian, and
What?
his name is Andy Hines. And how this happened was in the community I currently live in, it's my husband's community of Millbrook. I was working at the youth center for a long time. So that's one of my things too. I like to work with young people. And I felt
Mhm.
that being in this community, I have to contribute because it isn't my home community. So I was working at the youth center, working with young people, and an actor, like a local actor in the community just was like, hey, there's somebody looking for Indigenous youth. Would you be able to help them make profiles, whatever? So I said, sure. I help all these kids. I do everything on their profiles for this casting agency, send it out. I got a call from her. She's like, hey, I'm noticing you're on all of these kids, like whatever, like how come? And I said, oh, well, I work at the youth center and like I put their parents' contact too, but you can contact me as well. And they're like, yeah, well, that's what we're wondering. So I told them who I was, what I do. She was like, okay, could I call on you if I need any help in terms of like with the Indigenous part of this? And they weren't telling me what it was yet. So I
Okay.
was like, yeah, sure. So anyways, she kept calling me. She would ask like, hey, do you know dancers? Like Mi'gmaq dancers. I said, actually, yeah, I do. She go, I'll call you back. She called me back. I said, actually, some of these kids are dancers. What else do you know? Do you know anybody knowledge in dancing and the styles? I said, well, I am. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So she keeps calling me back and then she goes, hey, would it be okay if the producer calls you he's from LA, you'll see an LA number. And I'm like, sure. I don't know what's
And
going
you
on.
still had no idea what was going on?
No, I think she finally told me like it's a music video for
Okay.
Classified.
Okay, that's
Finally. Yeah.
finally,
So I
yeah.
was like, okay, but I don't know what yet. I don't know where. I have no idea. So he calls me and we're on the phone for like 2 hours and he starts just asking me like things. And he tells me, he goes, look, I'm going to share something with you that I'm really not supposed to, but I really like need your help. And if you're willing and
Oh, sorry. Benson's here, everybody. He always does this. He was
oh,
napping for a really long time. Oh my God, look at his hair. He's like, huh?
My Frenchie's snoring over in
Oh,
the car
I
here.
love him. He's so cute. I always said Benson needs a Frenchie buddy. Like they would
Yes.
just be the cutest. There's actually one here who's similar colors to him. His name is Memphis, and he is
Oh
so
my gosh.
freaking cute. He's just this big chunk. I just love him. They're so
What
cute
do-
together.
He's just a big, his name is Sebastian, but we call him Bash.
Bash. I love that. I was like the Bash brothers. That's what I thought of from like the Mighty Ducks.
So we talk, he asks me all these questions, I tell him. So he goes, okay, this is my vision. This is what I want to do. So he tells me and he says, I want to do it in the best way to represent Indigenous people and all of these things. So in the right way. So he says he's doing a video for Classify. Classify's touching on MMIWG. It's going to be here. We need this. We need this. And he goes, can you arrange that? I said, no problem. So I went to work. I got all these dancers. I got the kids involved. And he calls me back and he says, you know, we're going to have red dresses. He tells me like part 2 to the thing. So I decide to disclose. I said, I know all about that. I said, I actually have a red dress I created about a year ago now, almost a year ago. And I said, when I created this red dress, I said, it was something I did as an individual to bring awareness to MMIWG in my own way. And so what I did with the red dress was I found the perfect material. I created the red jingle dress. And then little history on the jingle dress is it's a prayer dance. It's a dance that you bring healing and you pray for people. You pray for sick people. You pray for people that are struggling, people that have passed. So when I created this dress, each cone that I put on the dress, that's the part where you kind of pray over them and you attach them to your dress.
Okay.
And each one I dedicated to the MMIWG people or women I knew like directly in a sense, like in like my sister-in-law that I never got to meet. And then the rest of the cones, I pulled up the inquiry online and there was over 4,000 women missing. So what I
Wow.
did was I selected randomly and I would pray for that past MMIWG victim and their families. And I always tell this story. I wish I could have put 4,000 jingles on my dress because
Right. Oh
I
my
wish I could have.
gosh. Yeah.
It was a really
Wow.
powerful thing. So I've never shared that story with anyone up until then. I shared it with him. So he's like, this is incredible. He goes, how do you feel about being in the music video? I said, well, I really don't want to be. I said, I'm not music video ready. Like I need to,
Girl needs to get video vixen ready. Yeah.
and he's like, no, I need you to be in it. He's like, everything you just told me is so important. I need you to wear that dress. And then I was like, I said, well, as long as you make a promise to me that you put the youth first, like as long as they're, oh, he's like, oh yeah, for sure. They're still going to be in it. So we get the youth, as long as that happens, then I'll commit to that. But other than that, it's a no for me if you're not going to include me.
It's a no
But
for
he's like,
me,
yeah,
dog.
absolutely. He's like 100%. So we go forward. We do the music video, we meet Classified. It was
Where did
amazing.
you do it? Was it Nova Scotia or was it in LA?
It was in Truro, Nova Scotia.
You want to
So
know
he,
something crazy? Just quick story. I
yeah,
wanted, he did a video in when I was in university. I went to Halifax for university. He did a video, you know, where like Split Crow, I don't know if it's still there. It's like a bar. It's like the cobblestone streets downtown Halifax.
yeah, I know where that is.
Okay, well, but a lot of it was shot there, and I don't know why I couldn't come. There was a reason though, because if there was a music video, I'd be like, yes, let me be in it. Don't remember why I couldn't be there, but I remember it coming out and it was classified, and seeing all my friends in this video, and I was
No
like,
way.
yeah,
I should have been in.
right. So, anyways, continue. I just had to throw that in there.
That's so funny because quick side story, when I was younger, I was like, I want to be in a music video. Like how
You
crazy.
manifested that shit.
Yeah, I didn't think like this. I was like, I want to be in
Yeah, video
like,
vixen.
you know?
No, that's me too.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me be your video vixen. Like, let's go.
But it's just funny how not be careful what you wish for, but what you put out there really comes to you. Like
100%. You know how they say like it's called spelling for a reason because we're casting spells? I totally believe that. I'm like, what you're saying, right?
It's crazy. So fast forward, we do the shoot in Truro, Nova Scotia. He gets what's called Victoria Park all set up with like the hanging red dresses. I get there with the kids. It was really eerie and emotional. Like I wanted to burst into tears, but I had like a full face of makeup and we were just staring at like it was very, and so they're all
I keep getting chills the whole time you're talking. I'm like, ooh, yes.
Yeah, they're all staring at us because they're like, wow, you guys look amazing. And we're all like, oh my God, this is like so emotional. So we go and we do the thing, and he's like, you're my co-producer or whatever he calls it. And I'm like, stop, like, no way. So anyways, fast forward, we do this whole thing. My husband comes with me because he's like low-key nosy. He drags my husband into it. Okay. He's like, we need our actor, just whatever. We need an Indigenous man. You're going to
Here
make
you
it.
go. Yeah.
And he was out there like, we knew he was something. We didn't even know him. We knew he was big because he was out there in like top of the line, cool clothes, really crazy
Yeah.
sneakers, like Yeezys in the mud.
Oh
And we're like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
So we
I'd
knew
be like,
he
I
was,
can't get my shoes dirty. These are expensive. Like,
right. I'd be
we
wearing
know he's a
like,
big deal. He don't care.
and he was the most creative person I think I've ever met in that sense. He was amazing. So anyways, at the end of everything, he's like, I'm leaving back to LA tomorrow. I just want to tell you guys, like, we developed this like really close bond and connection. He's like, I love you guys. I want you in my life forever. Like, and his name is Andy Hines. He's from the South Shore of Nova Scotia. His
No
dad,
way.
yeah, his dad's a famous photographer, and his name is Sherman Hines. So he comes from like this amazing background story.
Yeah.
He's in LA doing the damn thing. So he's like, I love you guys. You taught me so much. I want to stay in touch. So when he was leaving, I asked him, I said, Andy, what's your favorite sneaker? And he's looking at me and he's like, why? Because every day, every so many hours, he had a new pair of sneakers.
Oh.
Well, what's your favorite sneaker? He's like, why? I said, well, I want to beat you a sneaker. And he just looked at me. He gave me this really strange, like progressively thinking look. And he just said, hold on that. And we don't see him.
His wheels were turning.
Yeah, we don't see him, but we hear from him. He stays in touch. And then he tells me the concept about, I want to say 8 months later, he's like, look, he's like, we're going to do a workshop. We're going to bead sneakers. I want you to get all the Mi'gmaq youth. He starts, and we both collaborate on it. So, and I told him, I said, you know, that wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted to bead him like a necklace that
Like
was
gift him something, right?
Yeah. For doing everything the right way.
Yes.
So anyways, fast forward, we do this workshop, and he comes in and he brings just really amazing, talented people. He brings us on his, like, he had kind of like a talent agency. He's like, you guys are on it. So we do the sneakers, and that's how they kind of came to life. But another funny story was when I was in art school, I beaded my gym Nike sneakers and I wore them to the gym. So I showed him that.
Oh my God.
So I have a comparison, like still
Yeah.
existing. Like the original shoe was just like a gym sneaker, like easy to get through bead. And then
yeah, like the mesh or whatever.
So Nike sponsored 32 or 3 pairs of sneakers, sent them to our house. We prepared, we got youth involved.
Were they all the white ones, all the white shoes?
All the
Okay,
white
because I
canvas.
saw, was it the same beading on each or were they all different?
Yeah. Well,
okay, cool.
the youth did different. They did their own interpretation. And then we ran through the workshop the same way about like creative process, create something meaningful, tell a story. You have a blank canvas. We're combining traditional and contemporary.
Modern, yeah.
And it just blew the hell up. And got like honorable mentions from like the province. It was just, it was incredible. And to work alongside my partner, my husband.
Yes, that's beautiful.
It was phenomenal. So I would do most of the designing. He would do the beadwork, but we would split on some of the beadwork, but he did the really hard stuff because he's strong. And I was like, delicate.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to that point, by meeting him. And so when I just want to take it back for a second, when he talks about like, we did not meet, not on purpose. Like he doesn't believe in a coincidence. Like everything aligned with the dress, you know, the MMIWG.
Yes. That's what I was going to say. It was like one meeting. It just like evolved into this huge thing.
And it was no coincidence because one thing after the other aligned. And one of the things was the video when it was released. It's called Powerless, but it's an extremely powerful video. And in one shot, my husband's sister, her name is Tanya Brooks. She went missing about, I want to say, at least 10 years ago in Halifax. Her story, you can find it online, but she she has a sister, but my husband is not, they're not brother and sister. They have the
Okay.
same mom, and then my husband and her have the same father. So she's in the video and she's holding up a real MMIWG sign of her sister, Tanya Brooks, of my husband's sister. So the camera flashes on that and then flashes to my husband's face. And he had no clue. He
Stop. Are you
had no,
serious?
serious, he had no
What?
clue. And there was another young lady in it, and she was the granddaughter of a lady who was also a victim of MMIWG in here in the East Coast. Her name was Anime Akwash, and her granddaughter was in it. He had no clue, casted the young lady. So we like, it was just too much alignment and an
So
amazing,
much like, oh my
yeah,
God, like that's giving me life because
yeah,
it's like not just one thing, it's like 5,000 things, just boom, 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 boom,
yeah.
boom.
And
I
I've
love
never,
that.
and I was never able to tell that story, but I shared it with him. So we also had some really big lessons too about him being non-indigenous and being such an ally and such an amazing person to all of this, but us also holding space for him. So we learned so much
Yeah,
and we're so grateful. And we're still doing this work. We've been on pause for a bit due to a lot of trauma that's been
of
happening.
course.
We
Yeah.
still are, we still are pushing this out. We're doing another workshop really soon. And we hope to head to Nike headquarters and meet
Heck
and
yeah.
some big things in that sense. So
That is so cool. I told my partner about the shoes because he loves some Nikes. And I was like, yeah, they do these cool Nikes and they're beaded. And he was like, what? Because he asks like before my interview, he's like, who are you interviewing today? So that's
uh,
so cool.
and we had like, so when the traction was huge, we had like an NFL player inquire about the shoes. They were going for quite a bit of money. Like I think we
Yeah.
like 2000 US was some of the pricing.
Whew.
And
Well
we,
worth it though. Like that
yeah,
work. Yeah.
yeah, and we would take part of the money and we're putting it into a fund to help for clean drinking water for Indigenous communities in Canada, because
That's so beautiful.
it's really unfortunate that there's still communities that are
It's
under.
not necessary. It
Yeah,
makes no sense. Like it's
but
fucked up. Like no.
yes,
Everyone in this whole world should have access to clean
access.
drinking water. And the fact that we live in Canada and there's people who don't, like
Yeah, and
that's
like communities 20, 30 years on boil advisories or things like that, so
exactly.
we see when we do these things, when we do this work, there's always a sense of us giving back. And I think that's so important for, everybody listening to
Yes.
know and to honor that when you get something in life and it's big, always find a way to give back. It's so rewarding.
Always.
Yeah. And it's
Mhm.
so, it keeps the circle going round and round and
Yes. We're
beautiful.
so
Yeah.
aligned right now. I was going to say it keeps the flow going, but exactly that. Like exactly. Like that is how you when you give back, it's how you're saying thank you as well. Like whether that be to a person, the earth, a group of people, whatever. It's the only way that our world is going to survive is if we give back.
100%. And I'm a strong believer in that. What you put out, you receive. And then when you receive, you put out. Like it's just that ever exchange flow that never stops. So we
Yes.
believe in that. And that's, the work we continue to try to do in all aspects of what we're trying to accomplish. And right now, life is a little shaky with, I left my job. I'm taking the
Yeah, so
job.
much change and like,
Yeah.
people leaving and things like that. So yeah, of course, there's a lot going on right now, but I just want to thank you again for taking space for us today because I know it's challenging when you're going through a lot, but I really appreciate you coming on today.
You're so welcome. And I really appreciate you asking me because like I said, this has been something I haven't been doing things, and to jump back in this way with such good energy and such a good host, I really appreciate you
Yay.
asking me.
Of course. No, it's I have such like there's so many beautiful souls out there and I was just like I have like a list that I just keep adding to and just as I can, I just keep reaching out to people because I see everyone. Well, I don't see everyone obviously, but I mean the people who stand out and it's so funny because we're talking about the universe and synchronicities. It always works out exactly as it should. So
That's good, yeah.
yeah.
It's so funny. I bet you wish you could just interview almost everyone, eh? Like,
Oh my God, girl, if you could see the list I have and like this is what we're talking about, the manifestation. I'm like, do you know JVN from like Queer Eye? I love him. Jonathan Van Ness. He's got the beautiful long luscious hair.
yeah.
I'm like, he is going to be on my podcast one day and it's gonna be gorgeous and we're gonna have so much fun. And like Mindy Kaling, I'm obsessed with her. And I just am like, she would be such a cool person to interview. So like I have like my dream celebrity list. So
I just got
one
chills.
day.
I'm like, that's gonna happen for you.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, universe.
It's so funny. I seen your last episode with the frog.
Cambo Ash. Yeah.
I have actually done that.
Shut up. I'm so intrigued. I'm like, she needs to come here because like I just want to get it done. It just seems
Yep.
so healing and awesome.
It was definitely crazy, but I'm all about like trying different things for healing, what feels right to me. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing too, like in my growth, it doesn't have to be just like for me, Indigenous healing. Although that's my number one, I turn to and I really feel and relate to.
Yes.
I am so like open to all forms of healing. So when I seen that, I was like, oh my God, like my husband just finished a session last week too. He did combo. So it's
That's so cool. Okay, that's awesome. Now I've like I found out about Cambo Ash through my friend Josie, but now to hear another person's actual experience, like I just think it's awesome, and I much would rather go the natural route than put chemicals in my body if I can help it. And I just feel like my body reacts better to the natural things.
yeah. It's really it's a cool experience. It's like I guess it would be in the same field as like if you chose to microdose, right? Like it's supposed to be
Right?
natural. And so
Yeah.
it's similar to our ceremonies, what we do for Indigenous people. Like you have to suffer, you have to go through. And it's funny, I don't know if I'm quoting this right, but like the lotus goes through mud before it becomes like
Literally, okay, so this is too freaky because when you were talking about the flowers, that's what I was going to bring up with your collection. Because, like, I got it's the Unalome as well, which is like the path to enlightenment, but I got the lotus with it for that reason because I was like, it goes through the mud and the
yeah,
darkness and blooms from that. And it was just, it
and
means
it's
so
so
much to me.
beautiful.
Right? Like, it just, that is one of my favorite analogies for life because it's like
Yeah,
any
man,
suffering. Right, right. Okay, we all the chills.
yeah.
We're getting all the confirmation here, but it's
And
so
that's the
true.
and that's the thing, right? Like I feel like we align, like people like similarities like this and alignment come across each other's path, and it's really beautiful. Like the same story I told you about Andy, it's like that, you know. And I
Yeah.
do feel like we met for reasons 10 years ago and we're here again
Isn't
today.
that crazy? Oh my God, I'm having a moment right now because I'm like, who would have thought? Who would have
Yeah,
thought back then? Like, I'm so
never like
grateful.
I know it's so cool.
I'm having a moment right now, gratitude moment.
But yeah, I think like I was saying earlier about my struggle now, I just feel like it's the same thing. I got to remember the lotus goes through darkness and mud. But when you're in it, it's so hard to
Oh,
like,
girl, preach. Oh my God. When you're in it, it's like, oh my God. Like, if there was a fly on the wall for my healing journey, oh my God, it would be probably very highly viewed because I would be like sobbing on the floor, singing my heart out. I'd be angry. I would just be sitting there,
yeah.
like, just, oh my God, the punching bag. That is like one of my favorite ways to get my rage out. I'm like, give me a punching bag and let's go. Like,
I can't remember all of these beautiful things when you're in those low vibrations and low state, but
yeah.
when you climb out of them, you remember, or you meet people, you have interactions like we're having, and you're just like,
Mhm.
hey, I remember
Yeah.
now. And I love that, but it is because I'm coming out of it, but it's so difficult. It's
That's the thing, right? And it's like literally, like you said, it's like while in there. Like, so if anyone's in there right now with whatever your life is looking like, it, it is going to get better. It's
yes.
there's no time frame. I think that's the frustrating part because it's like you don't know how long something might take to heal. Like I have certain wounds that have been in there since I was like very young, and it's
Yeah.
so fascinating because I finally feel I'm like there's one wound in particular that's just constantly just keeps coming back, and I'm like, how else can I heal this? Like I'm trying. And I
Yeah.
feel like now finally I'm sort of coming out of it and I'm so grateful, but I'm also very I don't know if cautious is the right word because I'm like, you could be triggered again. So don't think you're good because it could come back and resurface in some way. But just the complexity of it and the intensity of it is not what it was at one time. So that's also cool to see, even though it takes a very long time for certain things, when you can kind of see it start to not have as big of a hold over your emotions. I love that moment. I'm like, yes.
And that's a sign you know you're healing
Yeah.
in that sense. One of the things I practiced this year since I've been through, especially with the losses I've experienced and the grief, it's called EMDR, and
Okay, yes. The
I do it with my
therapist, right?
therapist.
Yeah.
It is pretty close to a spiritual experience, I want to say.
So
And
healing.
yeah, yeah, the oftentimes the therapists, I wouldn't say they aren't spiritual, but they're not like,
They're more on the logical part of the brain
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
versus the spiritual part. But this has been really a tool that's helped me get through a lot. It's really an incredible experience, and you don't know where your brain's going to take you when you start it, and when you come out of it, oftentimes you process a lot of that trauma. So that's helped me immensely in the past bit. And I highly recommend it, especially if somebody is a spiritual person or kind of likes that type of healing. At first, I was like, what is this? I did not
Right?
think it was spiritual. She did not explain it that it would be even in the least bit like a spiritual experience, but I felt the same kind of way as I do when I do certain types of ceremonies or healing. So
Yes.
if anyone out there can do that, like do that for yourself to process a trauma or a certain
Yeah.
type of
Anything
experience.
that's been going on in there, even if it's like if it's something that's been there your whole life, or even if it's only been there a day, a month, a week, who knows? I
Yeah.
agree. Like so powerful. It's like, yeah, even if they don't want to say it, there's spiritual parts to it. I feel like there's spiritualness to everything. I'm
Oh,
like,
yes.
always.
Luckily my therapist has started to have a different mindset and open mindset with that.
Mm,
But it's really cool because she is open-minded, and she's just like, I don't know, she supports that part of me, and I think that's so important. Like I found too that being like, I have to honor my full self and including my spiritual side. So I'm just being my
yes.
authentic self these days, and a big part of that is having those experiences and talking about them or sharing them and seeing if they can help others, because they help me
Preach.
a ton. And I'm the same like you. I don't like to I wouldn't say medication doesn't work. I believe it does for people. I think that everybody,
Absolutely. Teach their own
like,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I would never knock that or say it doesn't work. I 100%, I just use that as my last resort because I'm
That's
kind
it.
of
Exactly it. Yes. It's not
this,
that I won't. It's just if I could do something else first, I will do
yeah,
something else
see if it
first. Yes.
works.
Yep.
Exactly. And I don't, like I said, I will take and like what I need to if I need to, for sure. But
Absolutely.
holistic approaches for me are like where my spirit gets called to first and foremost.
Same here. And I feel too, yeah, with growth and everything, honoring that and just fully leaning in. And like you're saying too, even with your therapist, how she's more open. And that's it too. If anyone out there is looking for therapists or ways they can do the work, don't settle if it's not someone if you don't vibe, you don't, it's not going to be, I'm just saying, I have been through many and like some I just don't connect with in that way and stayed there a little and it just wasn't as beneficial. I don't feel as if it were someone who I really, really connected to.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to use alternative measures to heal, because medication or therapist, seeing a therapist is just one or two ways of doing things. There's many ways. Therapy can be different for everybody, and that's something I've
Yeah.
learned along my
Oh,
journey.
for sure. There's so many avenues. I've done a lot of like self work as well. I feel
Yeah.
like that's been very helpful to me because it's just feeding my mind what it needs or my spirit or whatever and keeping it back to basics, getting outside in nature. That's
Yeah,
like the best therapy for me. I'm
the
like, let me
best.
just go touch this tree for a while or let me just go to the ocean. Like I just need something. So that's
Yeah.
a big, big help as well.
Same. It's so funny. I'm very like, I feel very aligned with what you're saying as well.
I
Like I've
know.
done all those things too. Like I use everything that I need in the the moments I need it. Like nature is huge. Going for walks, doing self-help, reading self-help books, doing journaling, all of those things. Like healing is certainly not linear, and it's not
No.
bound to one.
It's a ride for sure. Not linear. I love that saying so much because it's so freaking true. And like maybe something that helped you with one part of your healing journey, it might not resonate with a different part. So that's also the beauty of it. It's frustrating sometimes though, because you're like, why isn't this working? So, you know,
Mhm.
be open to like trying new things because maybe that's where the universe, again, it could be one of those synchronicities of life where it leads you to a direction you didn't even know you were going to go. So you never know.
Yep. And that's what I feel too, like why I mentioned the EMDR is because sometimes that it felt like surface work for some of my trauma, not all. And so when
Yeah.
it was the deep stuff, I had to do the deep work. And I feel that certain layers we got to dig a little deeper to heal. So
Oh, right. Those, yeah, the deep ones, it's like it can be a lot sometimes. Do you have any final words of wisdom for us? You've dropped so much wisdom this whole episode, but if there's anything else, we're all ears.
my final words in a nutshell would be, I think, to follow your dreams, to really feel what your calling is and honor your spirit and to do things in a really good way. I think if you can live by those pieces of wisdom, I think that, you know, you'll take yourself really far. And no matter what it is, if you believe that it's, you know, meant for you and meant for your calling and your, like you've said, your soul purpose, it's going to be successful. So if I learned anything, it's all of those, you know, all of those.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much yes.
I'm so
Oh my
proud of
God.
you. Keep going. I think this is amazing, and
Thank you
congratulations
so
on your
much.
success.
No, you too. Congratulations. I love to see it. I love to see, just like I've said a million times, but your pure, beautiful soul and talent just come alive through all of your creative ventures, not just the pieces you make, but the projects you've been involved with. Anything. It's all a contribution. It's all leaving the world a better place than you found it. It's helping enlighten people. It's awesome. And I just want to thank you so, so much. I'm truly honored that you've been with us today.
So excited. Thank you again, Kaylee.
You're welcome. Well, that is our tea time for today, everyone. I want to thank each and every listener, viewer for tuning in. Really means the world to me to keep building up this community of love, light, compassion, acceptance, openness, realness. That's the tea. That's what we want. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to have, actually, we almost forgot. Let's plug in your website and social media. I was about to say, all your stuff will be linked, but we kind of have to hear it first. So if you want, you can let us know how people can connect with you.
I can be found on Instagram at Chey Designs _ at the end of that. And you can follow my personal Instagram as well. I like to post on there. It's Shy_I_G, I believe. And my website is www.cheydesigns. Like, is that one
I
too?
know. I have to do that sometimes too. I'm like, but my other point, that will all be linked in the description box on YouTube and on the show notes if you're listening via podcast platform. So there'll be no trouble finding her website, socials. If you want to reach out, check out what cool stuff she's doing. Look at her website because you're going to see the beautiful work. And again, we're not sponsored by this movie, but that For Love movie. If you want to catch a little glimpse of Shy, she's there, but it's also from the Classified music video, so you can also check her out there. Super powerful, super amazing. So thank you, everybody. I want to wish everyone love and light as always, and we will see you next week.